Like, that's going to be really interesting. Playing, so people will be playing their characters, playing.
Playing another character.
Yes, and not just that, but they're playing, like Kyo specifically, like playing a character, and Kyo can't act, but Phil can. And,
Right.
like stuff like that. Or I think Arisa's a little similar, like she's not really an actress. She's just sort of
She's
like,
sort of by
ah.
herself on stage, angry and screaming,
Yeah.
mad at Kyo and everything.
Projecting her personal problems into the material as she,
Yeah.
yeah, that's going to be interesting. So yeah. All right. We'll start with Toria here. How are you most like your character, and how are you most not like Uo?
Well, like I said, Uo was kind of my inner angry child. She and I have a lot of the same views about things. She's very loyal to her friends. She'll do anything for them. She's also got a bit of a mean streak, which I don't necessarily show in real life, but boy, if people could live inside my head for 10 minutes, they would hear the things that I have to stop myself from saying. And I feel like being Uo gives me a lot of chances to sort of express that. Like my favorite thing to go and listen to is the card game that they play, Rich Man, Poor Man.
Yeah.
And Shigure is on the phone, and you just hear me in the background yelling, "Son of a bitch!"
Yeah, that's
One of
great.
my favorite things in the world. I would say that one of the ways that we're not alike is Uo is deceptively emotional. She lives so close to flying off the handle all the time. She's not a reserved person, but that also means she doesn't have a whole lot of control. So she is more likely to explode than other characters in the play, which is not the way I am at all. But all in all, it's a very cathartic character to play on all levels. I absolutely love voicing her.
Yeah, it's funny that she and Kyo have so many so many spats because at first you think, oh, it's because they're so alike, but the big thing that separates them is even when, like she feels very deeply and she's very passionate and she kind of explodes very freely, she still seems so in control most of
Yeah.
the time, while Kyo not so much.
Oh, she's in control. She just has none.
Yeah, exactly. She's so in control that she feels like she doesn't have to hold back anything, which is fun and refreshing. And a lot of people think she's really cool. And speaking of cool, there is Hana. And so how are you most like Saki Hanajima, and how are you most not like her, Mal?
Well, for most like, that's probably very quick. We have the same sort of feeling of loyalty towards our friends. We're both very protective about our friends, and we have very similar feelings towards food and sports. So, but that's actually where it ends, because well, Hana, we've realized so far, Hana can be really scary when it comes down to it. She can really kick some butt. And me, I'm probably the least intimidating person you'll ever meet. I'm a very cheerful person. I talk a lot. I make awful puns, and I have none of that brooding, mysterious, angsty stuff that Hana pulls sometimes. So it's kind of like a good thing that she doesn't bleed over into my real life, because I can just imagine channeling her at the library information desk, like, "Oh my, you brought that book back just now? I'm afraid I'll have to end, you know." It's like something like that.
So food and sports. How do you mean sports? She's very good at them. I'm not sure I ever.
I meant that running thing where they have that.
Oh,
Yeah, where she makes two steps and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't go on. I just can't." That's sort of me.
yeah. So she finds a naughty book to cuddle up to instead. Well,
Yes.
yeah. If Hana visited your library, I don't think that.
No, she would be very punctual with her books, I'm sure.
Just subject matter of what she checks out is perhaps best left to the imagination.
Yeah. We're a children's library, so I don't think she'd find anything here.
Okay.
I hope.
I hope not. So, all right. Okay. Well, upon getting your part, if you can think back to very early on in the process, what was the toughest? What was the biggest learning curve in playing your character specifically, or just voice acting in general? And Mel, we'll start with you, I guess.
Um, I think the worst part is Hana is very soft-spoken. She's very deadpan, and she doesn't want people to get a look inside her because she has a lot to hide. And no spoilers, but it's very hard to do that without sounding dispassionate and monotone and coming across completely boring. So that's a challenge. And also, of course, pulling off these kind of old-fashioned stuck-up expressions she sometimes uses without sounding completely pretentious. So that's the most challenging part about Hana.
Vociferous.
Vociferous.
My vociferous and just so many other eloquent phrases. Which
Yes.
contrasts very starkly with Uo, who knows no such elaborate phrases.
True story.
So what challenges did you you've mentioned it's come across very natural for you, but did you encounter any challenges when playing Uo or just voice acting in general versus live acting?
Well, and I don't know if a whole lot of people know this, but I am a theater major. I'm about to graduate from theater, actually. So I'm used to being on stage and acting, and I wouldn't say I'm the greatest actor in the world, but I'm very comfortable with it, and people seem to like me, so that's good. Um, but I think the biggest challenge with this character was finding the right balance of, because Uo's not dumb, but whenever I act in general, I tend to sound very smart just because I use my diction and I use my words. And so there are times when I have to force myself to let that go because that's not the way Uo would talk. And then a large part of it for me was trying to find the right combination of acoustics and dead space that I could record in. Like, fun fact, right now I am sitting in my closet in my dorm room with the door shut. And my roommate is sitting on her bed watching TV, probably thinking I am a crazy person. So it's always fun trying to find the right time and the right place to record. Sometimes one of my favorite places to record is just sitting on my bed and putting a comforter over my head and the computer. Just because I don't really have a studio or a good microphone. It's just my regular old MacBook microphone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had there were a lot of issues with that very early on. With I've mentioned when it comes to audio editing, there's a lot I can clean up. There's a lot of that I can tone match. I can play with the equalizer and get everybody to sound kind of like they're in the same room. You know, it's tricky with so many different mics and so many different locations. But the one thing I couldn't fix was echo, was reverb.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the earliest stuff for Uo, it's kind of a blessing that she had fewer lines early on, and then she got more into the story. You talked much more, but early on there was fewer lines per episode, which was good because there was a heavy echo in a lot of your recordings, and I was like, oh no, I can't do anything about it. I have to tell her to do them again. I don't want you to. I'm sorry, these were good, but you have to redo them. You know. Which was unfortunate, but yeah. Overall, it's been a good experience. It's just, and I had to learn how to do anything with audio pretty early on, which kind of made the whole thing interesting. And speaking of recordings, we'll get to that in a bit. But you know what? I guess I should dwell on it right now. People listening at home don't actually know this, I don't guess, but early on in the process. When recording for Fruits Basket, we did it satellite style, which is just a term that means I would send out scripts, I would maybe send out some direction, I would get the takes back, then I would listen to them, then I would send out notes if anything needed to be retaken, then I would wait, and it would be a back and forth like that. It was not done live. And that worked really well for a while until it kind of pushed back the well, I guess the thing is, Fruits Basket starts out very simply, and then over time, it gets more emotional and nuanced, and there would be times where I just needed a live session. That the most obvious example of that came up in episode 20 when Yuki has this sort of mental breakdown, and And we kind of had to coach Evan through that, where it was like, okay, well, how do I, how do we capture this without it sounding too over the top or not flat? You don't want to sound monotone, like you don't want it to sound completely emotionless, but you didn't want to play it as over the top either. But effectively, you have this character who is just sort of completely receded into the back of his head for an entire episode. You don't want it to sound stupid. So I was like, well, we're going to have to work on this, and we're probably going to have to work on it live, because otherwise, it'll just be frustrating going back and forth. And that's when it struck me that maybe we should just do the recordings live. And I was really apprehensive about that, because I was like, some people, I wasn't necessarily worried about people like Toria, who were used to doing theater and used to doing all that live to begin with, but there were some people that, maybe they're not going to be comfortable doing live recording sessions with direction, stuff like that, like acting with another person actively listening and, kind of critiquing them, like constructively, but still it can be nerve-wracking. And so, but I eventually decided to just go ahead and do it. And so if I could get some input from you guys, or anything you want to say about that, if anything, how does the live recordings that we do now kind of compare to the satellite style stuff that we did for the first, I don't know, like about 20 episodes or so?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'll start. It certainly helps for me, because I am a chronic procrastinator, and even though I am very, I love this project and I have enjoyed every second of it, it just, the recording time, it's always really difficult for me to get in time to have a recording session. But it's really nice to sit down with someone, have a set time. This is when you're going to call, and just blaze through all the lines. Don't have to worry about it. Bam, get it done. That's it. And then you don't have to worry about retakes or anything like that. So the process is shortened significantly, and I really do appreciate that. And I'm sure it's easier on your part as well, because you don't have to, again, send back notes and retakes and things like that. I like it. I think that it also gives us a little bit, because especially if our character that we're acting opposite has already sent you their lines, or you've already done a recording session with them, then you can tell us how their line is being said, and you can coach us into having the appropriate response to this other character's line, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, that's also very helpful. In the past, usually I would have multiple takes, and I would pick, particularly when it came to comedy, I would pick takes where it sounded like one person was directly reacting to the joke that somebody else was doing, etc. And now I can just sort of keep it in the back of my head, oh, I've already recorded with Jesse, and this is how he said this, and kind of. The experience is helpful, and I wasn't going to say anything about the procrastination, but yes, Toria is one of our serial procrastinators that would have me wringing my hands and running around the room and oh no, this is due out. So there was one I don't remember what episode it was, but there was one occasion where the episode was due out the next day, and I went ahead and just sort of edited as much as I could without your lines in it, and I was like, oh, just wait, and it came in, and I was like, oh, God, we should switch to live.
I know, yeah, and that's me. But it should be getting better now, because I won't be in school anymore. I'll be graduated, so I won't have to worry about any of that stuff. And I look forward to being able to get this stuff out on time now.
That's one of the nice things, I guess, about having gone on hiatus at the times that I have, is usually come back right around summer, where everybody's like, yeah, I'm free. They're not stressing about finals or anything nasty like that. But yeah, and I hope I don't think I've done more than maybe 2 sessions, episode 23 and 24, with UML live, but hopefully those went well, I guess.
Yeah, well, basically I agree with everything that Toria said about the benefits of the new method. That didn't stop me from being a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
No, it was kind of hard, because, well, for one, you have the time difference, which is always a little bit complicated. But I'm still very self-conscious about my accent. I'm really glad that people like it so far, but it's still kind of, am I saying that right? What does that sound like? Do I sound like Arnold? It's
well, he's Austrian, but
Yeah, but I'm from Bavaria, so it's basically the same kind of accent.
Oh.
So yeah. So it was kind of hard for me, and I had a really dry throat. I hope it didn't show as much as I thought it would.